one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it because you can.
This story is brought to us from ABC News. An Alabama judge heard conflicting testimony about newly released body camera video that captured the moments before a police officer fatally shot an armed black man outside of his home, in a case that highlights the complex legal questions that arise after police shootings in states with stand your ground laws and widespread gun ownership. Mac Marquette, 25, is charged with murder for fatally shooting Steve Perkins just before 2 a.m. on September 29, 2023, while accompanying a tow truck driver to repossess Perkins' truck at his home in Decatur. Now, that's Decatur, Alabama. The body camera video shown in court appears to confirm officers' testimonies that Perkins pointed a gun at Marquette, but the law enforcement expert who investigated the shooting says that Marquette also had the opportunity to potentially avoid a violent confrontation altogether. He could have de escalated. Circuit Court Judge Charles Elliott heard arguments about whether Marquette should be shielded from prosecution by Alabama's Stand Your Ground law, which grants immunity from prosecution to any individual who uses deadly force as long as they are in a place they have a right to be and reasonably believe they are in danger. Stand your ground laws have proliferated nationally after the fatal shooting of Trayvon Martin in 2012. Remember that one? Sparking debate about race, gun laws, and self-defense. Upward of 30 states have some form of the law, according to the National Conference of State Legislators. Marquette was one of 3 officers who was dispatched to help Caleb Combs after he called the police to report Perkins for pointing a gun at his chest when Combs tried to repossess Perkins' truck. Combs, who was authorized by Perkins' creditor to repossess the truck, so he's repo man, said he wanted to retry the seizure, but said he would not go back alone. All 3 officers were out of sight from Perkins, from his front door, when Combs returned to Perkins' home with his tow truck, according to body camera video. Marquette and another officer, Joey Williams, stood at the side of the house. Attorneys relied on a beam visible in the body camera video that was cast by a tactical light attached to Perkins' handgun to identify where his weapon was pointed when he emerged from his house for the second time. When Combs tried again to repossess Perkins' pickup truck, the beam appeared to indicate that Perkins pointed his gun towards Combs. Videos from both 2 of the officers' body cameras then show Marquette rounding the corner to confront Perkins. In a matter of seconds, Perkins appears to point the gun at Marquette, who shouted, "Police, get on the ground," and almost instantly fired approximately 17 bullets, killing Perkins. Just before Marquette opened fire, body camera video appears to show the light from Perkins' gun pointing upwards against his house, away from Marquette. Prosecutors said that indicated that Perkins tried to raise his arms and surrender before he was killed. Judge Elliott didn't review Marquette's body camera video. Perkins didn't fire any bullets, but his gun was found with a depressed trigger, according to the state law enforcement agent who investigated the shooting. The agent, Jamie King, said it is not clear when the trigger was pulled and that the chamber was empty. "That was the most scared I've ever been," said Marquette in an interview he gave to investigators immediately after the shooting, according to an audio recording played in court. Jamie King said that the officers had reasonable belief that Perkins was going to use deadly force and had to make a quick decision. But he also questioned why the officers were there in the first place and said there were other police tactics that could have avoided the situation altogether. It's called de-escalation. Creditors don't need a judge to authorize the repossession of a vehicle if a person fails to make loan payments. That's called repo. But Alabama law requires a court order if there is a breach of the peace in the initial attempt to seize the vehicle, and law enforcement is prohibited from assisting the repossession without a judge's authorization. So Officer Christopher Muckadam and Williams both testified that they weren't assisting with the repossession, which would violate Alabama law, but were instead providing a civil escort that was routinely done to keep the peace. All witnesses agree that there was a breach of peace when Combs initially tried to seize Perkins' truck. King said that officers exceeded their scope of their responsibilities because they didn't have a court order authorizing the vehicle seizure. In order to keep the peace, you need officer presence, and officer presence means an officer had to be visible, said Jamie King. The hearing comes on the heels of 2 years of intense conflict and protest about Perkins' death in the northern Alabama city of approximately 60,000 people. Perkins' wife and mother both left while the body camera video of the shooting played. Over 100 people filled the courtroom to capacity. Some wearing shirts that read "Back the Blue" sat in the benches behind Marquette. Across the aisle, others wore shirts that read hashtag I am Steve Perkins, and they sat behind Perkins' family. Elliott will hear arguments from both sides, and if he denies the former officer immunity, Marquette's trial will begin on April 7th. But if the judge says, no, we're going to give him immunity, you know, and maybe he'll be excused from that. I don't know. But there's so much going on here. The real question is, when Marquette shot him, are we saying that the beam from his gun was pointing upward against his house, which would indicate, let's say, because I can't use this arm, so let's say he had the gun here, raises his hands like this, and the light is going back towards the house, and he gets shot. Well, he had a gun. The cops, they can't just wait for him to lower and shoot. No, they could de-escalate. And there are investigators in this story that they're saying they even said, hey, there were other tactics they could have used. But that's not the case for many, many, many law enforcement officers. They say, hey, man, I'm going to shoot you. I don't got time to de-escalate. We don't have time to try it try it in court, man. If you live through this, they don't know how to de-escalate. All they know to do is obey me, or I'm going to pull my gun or my taser and I'm going to wipe your ass off the face of the earth. That's what they believe.